Welcome back, squad, to our next episode of the Dankest Trades series. Over the past several months, the Mad Lads over on WallStreetBets have bravely sustained their title as the most retarded traders in the business. Their willingness to go balls to the wall on every trade and their complete disregard for risk management makes every financial consultant lose their shit, from Dave Ramsey to Gordon Ramsay. It is my pleasure to explore this insanity so that we may all partake of their death or glory. And once again, I thank Tendies, the new iOS app that takes your casual trip through Wall Street bets and turns it into a jet-fueled roller coaster, for sponsoring this video. We'll talk more about them later. In this episode, we pay homage to those traders who created great wealth and those who burned their life savings to ash. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present the most diabolical trades of the rapture. Let's dive into the story of Zerdust, an ethnic Kurd living in Edmonton, Canada, who punches his card as a manager at a paint store. Our man is a passionate individual who cares greatly for his home country of Kurdistan, and watching the Ottomans bulldoze their way through the Congragel during their annual open season taxed Zerdust's mental health greatly. Living abroad, he also faced challenges forming personal relationships with local Canucks who do nothing but chop wood and eat syrup. These factors pushed Zerdust deep into his work as a paint salesman, a job at which he excelled despite his salary being quite modest. However, even this job grew difficult when a coworker began getting her cheeks clapped by the store owner. This led Zerdust to believe she was gunning for his job, using Poon as bait. And if you're so desperate to sell paint at a higher level that you're willing to put out, there's no telling how far you'll go. In summary, Zerdust couldn't catch a break. To turn around this downward spiral, Homeboy believed his best shot was to print money. If he could at least achieve thick bag, he could put the job behind him and focus on his personal needs first. To do so, he opened his brokerage account in late July and deposited about 2/3 of his life savings in the amount of $20,000. Knowing he needed a moonshot to achieve his goals, Zerdust went all in on 94 calls on Virgin Galactic, ticker SPCE, aka Space, for $216 each. At the time of purchase, Space was trading for about $29 and was coming off a huge slide from the upper 50s. With his $55 strike and expiration in January 2022, Zerdust was counting on a return to all-time highs. To his pleasure, by the end of that week, Space had dead cat bounced its way to the mid-30s, and our man was up at least $5,600. This was the most luck he'd experienced in ages. He had clearly found the answer to his prayers. Like a redneck on meth, our favorite Kurd was hooked. He raided the remainder of his savings account to add an additional $8,800 while he watched Space take flight. Now, where to invest the new money? Being an avid gamer to fill the gaping void in his life, our man was familiar with Skills, a company that facilitated competitive online gaming. Having personal experience with the brand, Zerdust had the confidence to go all in with his new deposit. At the time of purchase, Skills was coming off a big meltdown from about $22 in June. When Zerdust bought his 665 call contracts, Skills was trading for only about $10. His $20 strike was 100% out of the money, expiring in about 60 days. An extremely aggressive bet, replicating the same strategy he used with Space. Luckily for him, he actually did nail the bottom again, and when Skills hit $12.50, Zerdust was up over 150% as his position bloomed to $22,000. But did he sell his Skills calls? Did he sell his Space calls? Is Kurdistan a country? Zerdust held every call he had, selling nothing until both Space and Skills reversed over the next 30 days and cost our man over 87% of his initial investment. Although we don't know his exact highs because he didn't post them, we can estimate based on options price history that his Space position peaked at about $23,500 and Skills at $22,000. A 110% gain converted to an 87% loss, all in about 1 month. These are called consequences of greed, mashallah. My advice, no cap, when you're up 100% on your position, sell half and buy shares with it. Then ride the remaining calls while you enjoy having shares with no expiration date. It can't go tits up. Try letting your boss clap your cheeks instead, Zerdust. Let's check out Diabolical Trade number 4. Our next diabolical trader has an excellent username, but when it comes to IQ, our man is scraping the bottom of the barrel. It is my pleasure to introduce Tender Vendor, A guy who decided his DD was complete after reading only headlines on the first page of Google and Wall Street Bets, thus arming himself with a wet noodle to place his diabolical trade. On October 4th, Tender Vendor consulted Wall Street Bets on how to make it big overnight. He was persuaded by convincing argumentation from user DarthVader042020 that a simple $90 investment into calls on stamps.com, ticker STMP, would yield about $24,000 in one short-term, low-risk trade. According to Darth Vader, which should have been the first red flag, Stamp was merging with a company called Thoma Bravo to go private at $330. Darth Vader believed that since Stamp was only trading for $332.40 at the time of his post, it would be logical to buy with the assumption that Stamp would hit $330 in accordance with the merger arrangement. This makes sense if we're talking about shares, but his recommendation was to buy, quote, leaps expiring in 3 months at the $330 strike. Since Stamp would certainly rise to $330 in accordance with the merger, he believed the calls would rise in value as well, from $5 to $350 each, a whopping return of 7,000% in less than 24 hours. Our hero Tender Vendor saw no holes in this theory. He Googled Stamp calls and didn't see any headlines that contradicted Darth Vader, and thus Tender Vendor decided to shoot his shot. With about 10 grand, our man went in exactly as Darth Vader described, dropping the whole stack on as many of those January 330 calls as he could get his hands on. Surely, if a $90 investment would yield $24,000, then a $10,000 investment would result in millions. Although the calls were due to expire in 2022, Stamp had previously announced since July that the merger would take place the week of October 4th, the same week that Darth Vader posted his DD. To anyone who understands options, you can already see how whack this trade is. A $330 call acts as a coupon to buy shares at $330. If the stock will never trade higher than $330 as stipulated in the merger, then that coupon will never do anyone any good. In other words, it's useless. And like all useless things, their value dropped to zero as soon as the merger solidified. Tender Vendor's whole investment was gone. And if you ask me, I think that $10K went right into Darth Vader's pockets. What better way to unload your soon-to-be worthless calls than to post convincing DD on Wall Street Bets, naming your exact strike and expiration, and then get people who have no idea what they're doing to buy them from you? If that is indeed what happened, then this maneuver is absolutely diabolical. Congratulations to both of you on picking the perfect usernames for your role. I've got some beachfront property to sell you, Tender Vendor. And now, let's check out Diabolical Trade number 3. Let's take a break from all this bloodshed and go hang out with a guy named Words Are Loaded, a free spirit who loves his trucks and off-roading, but earns his paycheck as a consultant for managed service providers, some IT thing. He also appears to either own or work for a website called GetTrucked.com, which sells racks for the bed of your pickup truck specifically. He's also proficient in fine art and likes to draw dogs. Indeed, a very odd combination, or perhaps Canadian. But customized motor vehicles with extra towing capacity are expensive. When it comes to investing, this Renaissance man could only afford to dabble with about $2,000. Dicking around with play money is fun, but working a 9-to-5 prevented Words Are Loaded from pursuing his outdoor lifestyle beyond the weekends. When his friend left the cooler at home and now they had to sit around the campfire with no craft beer, our man contemplated what things would be like if he didn't have to go to work on Monday. Could his peasant-sized portfolio fund such an ambition? He'd seen people print money with risky dice rolls on Wall Street Bets. It was time to take his own throw against fate. On October 19th, there was no time left to waste. Words took his $2,000 portfolio and spotted Tilray, a Canadian weed monster that we all lost money on in the spring of 2021. At the time, it was trading for about $10.17. The market expected nothing from this dog, and premiums on call options were trading dirt cheap. Words Are Loaded, being a connoisseur of Mary Jane himself, determined that this lagger was primed for a rebound. Perhaps not fully understanding what he was doing, our man fully committed his $2,000 portfolio to buy 400 calls at the $11 strike, expiring 3 days later. At $5 each, these calls were literally as cheap as Robinhood would trade them. But such a cheap call meant that if Tilray were to rally, the rewards would be substantial. If only Tilray could get it together. That very day, by some insane jolt of luck, Tilray's board fired its scrub of a president and replaced him with a guy who actually knows how to deal some kush. Just 3 hours after words entered his trade, Tilray went flying 17% to $11.63, putting Homie's calls deep in the money. When he liquidated the calls, his portfolio ballooned from $2,000 to $33,000. But that's barely enough to afford a new F-150 with extra pistons. Our man needed more. With $4,000 of his winnings, the big shot went right back in the same week, dropping the stack on calls of backed holdings, ticker BKKT, some junior varsity crypto exchange that allows futures trading on Bitcoin and had recently gone public via a SPAC merger. At the time of purchase, Bakkt was trading for less than $10, an absolute bargain for anything with blockchain in its description. Words went in on 40 call contracts at the $15 strike for $100 each, confident that the market would buy this post-SPAC zombie right up. With great hunger, the market indeed gobbled up shares, slapping the ass with an open palm until the stock reached a whole $34.68. Words are loaded posted when Bakkt was trading near its high, and his $4,000 investment had once again mooned to almost $58,000. I had to reach out to him personally to find out if he actually ditched, and then had to come back and edit this video. It turns out, he took the roller coaster up and the elevator down to a gain of about $35,000. In total, this puts his 2K investment between these two tickers at about 70 grand. If words are loaded, then so are Words Are Loaded's pockets. Keep doing what you're doing, homie. Inshallah, your luck will continue. Now, let's check out Diabolical Trade number 2. Our next diabolical trader is a semi-sophisticated individual by the name of the Freeze Bandit, who typically performs extensive DD before engaging in any trading activity. As an affiliate of Unusual Whales, our man is used to observing order flow, momentum, and technical indicators to inform his investments. The Freeze Bandit has a positive track record of steady gains that adequately pleased his boomer family members. But sometimes, you just see that diamond and need to swan dive in. For Bandit, this diamond was Digital World Acquisition Corp, ticker DWAC, the SPAC that somehow poached a Donald Trump affiliation as the big man seeks to produce a knockoff platform called Truth Social. According to Twitter influencer Laid Back, this thing is bound to be the hottest social media platform since MySpace. It'll no doubt bring boomers together from across the Midwest and Deep South to discuss BLM and Sleepy Joe without Zuck's prying eyes and the banhammer. Bandit was enthralled by Laidback's DD and Unusual Whales' behind-the-scenes data and determined to shoot his shot. With one last prayer to Cheeto, Bandito went in at market open on October 21st when Mango's SPAC was trading for about $10, its net asset value. With $35K, our man bought an unspecified number of shares to ride the orange wave, but based on price history, we can estimate that he bought just under 3,500 shares, a well-cocked stack of pistols ready to fire. Within minutes, DWAC took flight to 69.69 specifically, a highly positive omen. Although Bandit was up over 200K already, he determined to hold, speculating that the stock would hit $100. Doing math in his head, Bandit calculated that Trump received 74 million votes in 2020. He believed 10% would be willing to invest $100 each into this stock, thus bringing an inflow of 740 million by the time this stock hit Fox News. This was truly a well-evaluated assessment. By market open the next day, Mango's SPAC had multi-bagged to over $90, eventually cresting at $175 before it came back off. Bandit and his pile of shares had printed over 400 grand. I don't know what platform this is, but it looks like almost 600,000 to me, although I'm not asking too many questions. Since this now makes him a social media influencer, Bandit posted his thoughts on the matter to his 7 YouTube subscribers in a video that I'll link here. From 35,000 to at least 400,000, the Freeze Bandit truly pulled himself up by Trump's bootstraps. His next bet is on 25,000 shares of Doma, a stock he chose himself and is down 20% from his buy price. What a loser. Enjoy the massive stack of Benjis, Bandit. We're about to get into Diabolical Trade number 1, but first, let's take a minute to talk about Tendies. If you're anything like me, you're pretty sick of Reddit interrupting your Wall Street Bets acid trip to redirect you to boring subs like R options or R dividends. Or worse, normie subs like R Picks or Rare Pubbers. I'm busy watching a guy lose his mother's retirement funds. I don't want to see your beagle. The new app Tendies fixes that for us by giving us an uninterrupted WallStreetBets freeway. Want to search your favorite ticker to see what the degens have to say? Search your stock and pull up a comprehensive list of posts. You saw some good loss porn and want to see who else lost money on that stock? Tendies gives you a tour of the slaughterhouse by showing you all the posts on that same stock, including the one guy who made money on puts. You can also search by crypto to see the cryptocurrency related subs, or ape to pull subs like Superstonk, GameStop, and AMC stock. And best for last, select this graph thing down the bottom to get option flow and the put to call ratio. Market-wide information at your fingertips. Most places would make you pay for that. And of course, no app for tracking gamblers would be complete without a crypto tracker. Check it out now at tendies.af/Mikey or download it in the App Store, only on iOS. Android coming soon. And now, the moment we've waited for. Diabolical Trade number 1. Our most diabolical trader is a junior scientific engineer from Albuquerque, New Mexico, by the name of C. Robbins Fly, a man who always has his hands full. In 2020 and 2021, C. Robbins Fly grew increasingly frustrated by government-mandated lockdowns and vaccination, and posted on the subreddit COVID Circle Jerk with a complete obsession. When the heavy dick of the government became too frustrating to deal with at some point in early 2021, he liquidated all of his real estate assets to move into an RV with his girlfriend so as to get off the grid and post on Reddit in peace. Then in September, he accidentally became a dad due to weak pullout game. To make matters worse, his girlfriend is of advanced age for having a baby, leading to a complicated birth that resulted in medical bills exceeding $1 million, because that's how we do things in the US. Then to top it all off, C. Robbins Fly got fired from his job for refusing the COVID vaccine, and as a result, is suing his former employer with litigation still pending. Being an unemployed new dad living off-grid in a trailer with your geriatric baby mama and suffering crushing medical debt is no one's idea of a good time. To rectify his stressful situation, C. Robbins Fly decided in late October to play the stock market aggressively with the intent of achieving gains and resigning to a more peaceful life. Fortunately for him, due to the liquidation of his real estate assets and unspecified gainful trades from April to September, our diabolical hero was still sitting on a relatively thick bank account despite his hospital bills and unemployment. With $120,000 in cash, C. Robbins Fly elected to go ham in his account with TD Ameritrade, a reputable organization that offers professional consultation on wealth management. But the big man had no interest in expensive discussions with some chump who would probably just rip him off. The better approach, he determined, was to benefit from the inevitable decline of car rental agency Avis Budget Group, ticker CAR, C-A-R. In early to mid-October, C. Robbins Fly determined that government actions designed to stem the spread of the Delta virus would lead to reduced travel, cutting the car rental industry to shreds. Specifically, he believed that the vaccine mandates would lead to widespread firings and unemployment, leaving the common people unable to afford flights and car rental. Banking on Avis Budget getting piped down by Joe Biden and Donkey Team's COVID response, our man flexed his entire $120,000 account to sell short shares of CAR. We don't know exactly when he sold short, but his account value would imply a short around $157, so roughly October 18th. With earnings around the corner on November 1st, C. Robbins Fly prepared to print thoroughly as the stock crumbled and burned. As the morning bell rang on November 2nd, C. Robbins Fly got his shit rocked, starting the day down 134%. TD quickly liquidated his entire account, but came up tens of thousands of dollars short. C. Robbins Fly was sitting on an account worth negative $43,000, and TD issued a margin call and was coming for their money. His life savings, including the liquidation value of his 2 houses, was gone, and even worse, he was actually in debt to TD after this diabolical trade. At some point during the whole affair, His Majesty appears to have moved out of the RV and now rents a room in town and visits his GF and kid on the weekends. Nonetheless, C. Robbins Fly appears to have landed a new job making around $70K per year before taxes. If all goes according to plan, he'll be back at square one around the time his kid is going to elementary school. If push comes to shove, maybe Walter White is hiring, and you've already got the RV. That's assuming they still have the RV. They probably had to sell it. My king, it has been my honor to share the story of your exploits. I invite you to accept your crown and take your throne as WallStreetBets' most diabolical trader.
Who wants to be king?
Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.